right, last time we took a little break from going through the Psalms. Well, we didn't quite, because we actually continued looking at David's record as a father. It wasn't very good, was it? It wasn't very good at all. So we're going to go back to what we were doing the previous time. We were going through his life, and I suppose what we did last time was really in keeping with that anyway. Today we're going to find out exactly how evil Saul is. So we're going to go to 1 Samuel chapter 21. 1 Samuel chapter 21. And just take a few verses there. So 1 Samuel chapter 21. Then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? And David said unto Ahimelech the priest, The king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, Let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, what I have commanded thee. And I have appointed my servants to such and such a place. And in verse 6 to 9, So the priest gave him hallowed bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before the Lord, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. For a certain man of the servants of Saul was there before the Lord, and his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chiefest of the herdsmen that belongeth to Saul. And David said unto Ahimelech, And is there not here under thine hand spear or sword? For I have neither brought my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. And the priest said, The sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom thou slewest in the valley of Elah, behold, it is here, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If thou wilt take that, take it, for there is no other save that here. And David said, There is none like that, give it me. Continuing where we were 2 weeks ago, David fled from Saul. We're going to find out today exactly how wicked, how evil Saul was. So David flees. By the way, of course, the Psalms 3 to 5 were set toward the end or the latter part of David's life. We've gotten in a time machine and we've gone back in time and we're going through his life, okay? And we have to kind of bear that in mind. So David is fleeing from Saul. Now, Saul is not in Jerusalem. Jerusalem has not yet been conquered. Jerusalem was conquered later by David when he became king. It was in the hands of the Jebusites. Okay? So we're prior to that, and Saul is in a place called Gibeah, okay, which is not terribly far from Jerusalem. And David's on the run. David is under threat of losing his life to the king Saul. Saul sees him as, quite understandably, because Saul is aware he has been anointed as king. He's been set apart by God to be king. And so David's life is under jeopardy because Saul does not wish to give up his position of power and authority easily. People don't. Rulers don't. Dictators don't. And such people cling to power. So he's on the run. He goes here to a place called Nob. Okay? It's a small village, not far. It's between Jerusalem and Gibeah, basically. Not very far away. It is a city of priests, a place where the high priest Elimelech lived with all the priests. It was a priest town, a Levite town. And the tabernacle was kept there. Remember the tabernacle? Tabernacle was the tent where the nation of Israel met with God, okay, in the wilderness. And it was stored here temporarily at this place called Nob. So David sought refuge. Next town down the road, I suppose. And so Ahimelech it mentions the showbread. There was bread on a table that was baked every morning, was presented before the Lord, and it was sanctified, it was holy, and so he got to have some of that bread. He was in need. Do you remember when the disciples went through the wheat fields? They were hungry, and they were criticized by the Pharisees. Well, the Lord, of course, countered that by declaring that the Sabbath was made for man. And these things are not hard and fast kind of rules when there's need. Anyway, there's a man called Doeg here. Now, Doeg was not an Israelite. He was a Edomite from the country to the east of the river Jordan. Okay? And this whole event here led to a most horrendous catastrophe. In fact, it was a real genocide. As we read on a little bit further in chapter 22, David moves on. He goes in chapter 22, verse 1, to the cave Adullam, and then a whole bunch of others gathered with him. We'll read verse 1. David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave Adullam, and when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. So a great number gathered. We learned about that in verse 2. And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him. So it was a pretty motley bunch, and I can imagine a pretty difficult bunch to handle. But David seems to be able to get a handle on it. But quite a disparate, varied group here. And he became captain over them, and they were with him about 400 men. So that was the core of his army that he was building up. So he takes care of his mother and father. Verse 3, David went thence to Mizpah of Moab, that's again across the river, and said unto the king of Moab, let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you till I know what God will do for me. So he looked after his parents. I suppose I should have mentioned that last time, shouldn't I? As a father, he looked after his parents. Honor thy father and thy mother. First commandment with promise. Anyway, however, a terrible catastrophe occurs here to do with this Doeg guy. So let's read down a little bit further here. And the prophet Gad said unto David, abide not in the hold, depart and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed, came into the forest of Harath. By the way, if you ever go to Israel, and I'd love to go to Israel again. Now, right now, it's not a good place to go, and you can't get flights in anyway. But Israel, way back then, was covered in forests. The Romans, when they came along, desired the wood for building ships and all kinds of construction, etc., and they cut down all the trees. So there are very few trees left in Israel, and if you go there, it's all kind of hillsides uncovered by trees and so on. Very few trees. So a forest is a great place to hide. Right? Verse 6. When Saul heard that David was discovered and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having a spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. Then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, hear now, ye Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? In other words, what's he got to offer you? That all of you have conspired against me, and there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse, and there is none of you that is sorry for me, or showeth unto me that my son hath stirred up my servants against me to lie in wait, as at this day. Okay? Well, this guy Doeg, the Edomite, takes his opportunity. Verse 9. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him and gave him victuals, that's meat. I don't know if you see them anymore, but when I was growing up, there was a shop, butcher shop, and it had the word victualler over the top. You know what that means? He sell meat. I actually went down to the slaughterhouse. There was a slaughterhouse in the town, a little small one, where the man who run the victualler's shop brought the cows in and killed them and chopped them up for putting them on the plates or putting them on display to be bought and put on someone's plate in the O'Sullivan home at some stage. So anyway, in other words, we're back here in verse 10, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob, and they all came of them to the king. And Saul said, Hear now thy son of Ahitub. And he answered, Hear my lord. And the Saul said to him, Why have ye conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, that's David, in that thou givest him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise up against me to lie in wait as at this day? So Ahimelech protests his innocence and his loyalty. Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, And who is so faithful among all the servants as David, which is the king, oh, he's putting his foot in it here, as the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honourable in thine house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of his father, for thy servant knows nothing of all this, less or more. And the king said, Thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. You're going to die for this disloyalty. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled and did not show it to me. But the servants of the king would not pour forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. And this is an atrocity in the making here, that Saul is going to kill all the priests. A massacre he's calling for a massacre of the priests. Verse 18, And the king said unto Doeg, Turn thou and fall upon the priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priests, and slew on that day 75 persons that did wear a linen ephod. Okay, he killed 85 priests at the bidding of Saul. So how wicked is Saul? Utterly wicked. Imagine killing all those people and more coming. So at his command, Ahimelech is killed, and his 85 priests, 84 others, I suppose. And next verse, not only that, and Nob, the city of the priests, the town of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings, and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. Massacred, absolutely, and only one escapes. Abiathar, the son of the priest, flees to David with the ephod and that guidance apron. And that's recorded in chapter 22, well, it's in verse 6 to 23. So, verse 20. And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priest. Can you imagine how David felt at this point? And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day, I just had a feeling. Do you ever get those occasions when you just have a feeling that something's not going right here, or not going to work out well, something evil afoot? Well, he says, I knew it that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. What a terrible burden upon him, that he had caused all of these people to be killed by his, well, it wasn't his intention, of course. It was Saul's fault. Verse 23, abide thou with me, fear not, for they that seeketh my life seeketh thy life, but be thou with me in safety or safeguard. Okay, so find sanctuary there. So there's the evil of Saul. So why are we looking at this? Well, we're looking at this in relation to the Psalms. So let's turn to the Psalms for a minute, and we go to Psalm 52. And what do we read in the inspired introduction to the Psalms? To the Psalm. To the chief musician Maskil, a psalm of David, when Doeg the Edomite came and told Saul and said unto him, David is come to the house of Ahimelech. Let's read a few words of it here. Why boastest thou thyself in mischief, O mighty man? The goodness of God endureth continually. Thy tongue deviseth mischiefs, like a sharp razor, working deceitfully. Thou lovest evil more than good, and lying more than to speak righteousness. Thou lovest all devouring words, O thou deceitful tongue. God shall likewise destroy thee forever. He shall take thee away and pluck thee out of thy dwelling place and root thee out of the land of the living. Okay? So, in the psalm here, David is taking the long view, and of course Saul was judged and his whole family and so on. So, that's the background of Psalm 52. Well, what happens next? Well, David flees to Gath. Now we go to 1 Samuel again, back to 1 Samuel. So we're sort of following through his life and how the background, or provide a background for the Psalms. 1 Samuel 21. Now, let's see, we come to verse 10. And David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul. So he had a valid fear, right? And went to Achish, the king of Gath. Now, Gath is one of the cities, I think there were 7 of them, 5 Philistine cities on the coast. Okay, so Gaza is in the news. Gaza's kind of dropped out a little bit, hasn't it? Ukraine has dropped out a little bit, quite a lot. We've got a new focus, Iran, etc. What's going on there? Well, Gaza was the region where there were 5 cities of the Philistines, and one of them is called Gath. Now, it's kind of strange how David would go down there, because the Philistines were enemies of the Israelites, but anyway, he did. And God obviously looked after him. He's a bit of an actor. Verse 11, and the servants of Achish said unto him, is not this David the king of the land? Did they not sing one to another of him in dances, saying, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s? So he's rumbled. They're onto him. And David laid up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he's a little bit fearful here. So he hits on a kind of unusual strategy. Verse 13, he changed his behavior before them and feigned himself mad in their hands and scrabbled on the doors of the gate and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. Maybe he's like somebody you might chance upon in the street who has been drinking and they're in a bit of a mess and they're dribbling their food down their... bit weird. And of course, when someone's behaving weirdly, do you know what everybody does? They keep away from them. Oh, don't want to be around this fella. Don't know what he's going to do. So, verse 14, then said Achish unto his servants, Lo, ye see the man is mad. Wherefore then have ye brought him to me? Have I need of madmen, that you brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Said this fellow, come into my house. So what's behind this? Well, go to Psalm 34. And let's read the introduction. Psalm 34. Psalm 34, let's read the introduction. A psalm of David when he changed his behavior before Ahimelech, who drove him away, and he departed. So we get a little bit of extra information here as well, that he was kicked out of Gath, but at least his life was preserved. God was preserving him, had him prepared for the position of king. So let's read a little bit of the psalm here. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and he delivered me from all my fears. Remember, he was fearful. The people of Gath had rumbled him and pointed out who he was and brought him to the king, and managed to escape. God gave him a way of escape. So he sought the Lord. The Lord heard him, delivered him. And what about verse 6? This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. He was in trouble. He was on the run. He was in fear of his life. But God looked after him. Verse 7, the angel of the Lord encampeth round them that fear him and delivereth them. God's protection. But it's only those who fear him. Verse 8, there's an invitation. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Have you tasted and seen for yourself God's goodness? Are you tasting God's goodness each day as you walk with him? Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. Verse 9, O fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. The young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing. And so forth. Verse 19, many are the afflictions of the righteous. And David knew about those. In fact, most of his life, there was one affliction or another. Certainly coming up to being king, there were a lot of afflictions, and he knew about afflictions. Then there was a period of stability and peace until that terrible sin of adultery with Bathsheba and the murder of her husband, and then things really, really, really unraveled. Okay? But many are the afflictions of the righteous. When a person is saved, God does not issue them with a certificate of exemption from the troubles and tribulations of life that come to everybody. But what he does do is he assures us of his presence in those troubles and his deliverance out of those troubles. Verse 18, the Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. A humble and contrite spirit God will not despise. But you need to manifest that to have his blessing. And of course in verse 20, there's a messianic prediction concerning the Savior. He keepeth all his bones, not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked, and they that hate the righteous shall be desolate. So maybe right now the redeemed, the saved people are going through difficult times, but all that will be reversed. God is the great reverser. And those who have the upper hand and who are prospering and doing well and are wicked, they seem to have the upper hand, and they do in many places. All that will be reversed. They'll be dragged down into the dirt and into hell itself. They that hate the righteous shall be desolate. Verse 22, the Lord redeemeth the soul of his servants, and none of them that trusteth in him shall be desolate. So, how are we doing on time? Cave Adullam, We go to 1 Samuel chapter 22. And remember, he has amassed 400 men at this point. And where is this located? Probably somewhere to the west of Jerusalem in the wilderness of Judea. And so he longs for a drink from the well at Bethlehem. Why Bethlehem? Well, Bethlehem is the city of David, where he grew up. And he's thinking of the cool, refreshing water there. So 3 of his mighty men break through the Philistines, I think, who are there, and brings him a drink. Such is their devotion to him. This is all about 3,000 years ago. Okay, let's go to 1 Samuel 24. And this is En-Gedi. Now, if I ever go to Israel, this is the place I really would love to go. And sadly, we missed it because the tour wasn't going there. But this is the really authentic place where, well, let's read 1 Samuel 24. Came to pass when Saul was returned from following the Philistines that it was told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Where is En-Gedi? En-Gedi is on the west coast of the Dead Sea. Very much desert, hot. People were complaining about the heat, yesterday. Oh, it's so hot. I like heat. I didn't mind it one bit. In fact, it's gone too cool for me today. But very hot, desert, dry. And there are pools. There's a waterfall, and there's a pool. People go swimming in there. Lovely, refreshing place. Then, verse 2, Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. Goats are amazing, what they can climb up. I don't know if you've seen a picture, it's featured on the internet. It's an almost vertical wall of a dam. And there's a goat up there licking the rock. I don't know if you've seen that one. How they do it. Or we were up in the Acro-Corinth, just near ancient Corinth. And up there you can see goats. They're up there. They are just, I don't know, they don't have fingers like we have. And yet with their hooves, they're able to climb up in some amazing places. Well, it's a very rocky place. The rocks of the wild goats. Okay? So he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where there was a cave. And Saul went in to cover his feet. And David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, David and his men hide in the darkness of the cave. And Saul goes in there to use the bathroom. A little bit embarrassing, okay? Imagine doing your business with all those people watching you. Of course, he didn't know. And it's so close, I suppose he must have had divine help, but David got his sword, presumably the sword of Goliath, still, and cut off a corner of Saul's robe very quietly. Verse 4, the men of David said unto him, Behold, hey, David, this is your chance. Behold the day of which the Lord said unto thee, Behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt, little piece of Saul's robe privily. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him, because he had cut off Saul's skirt. And he said unto his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed. He was the Lord's anointed king. If he was to be removed, it was to be in God's time, not by man's hand, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David stayed his servants and suffered them not to rise up against Saul. Verse 7, But Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. So David, after a while, went out, called unto Saul, and demonstrated the fact that he could have killed him, but didn't. And so Saul, let's read what he said. Verse 16. It came to pass when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. And he said to David, Thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. And thou hast shown this day how thou hast dealt well with me, for as much as when the Lord hath delivered me into thine hand, thou killest me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Will he let him get away scot-free? Of course not. Wherefore the Lord reward thee good for that thou hast done unto me this day. And now behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand. Swear now therefore unto me by the Lord that thou wilt not cut off my seed after me, but that wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. In other words, look after my posterity, because I know you're going to be king. You've been anointed, remember? It's anointed way back when he was a youth, years before. And let's be reminded here that God's plans will be established. Those people have risen up against Israel to wipe it from the face of the map. By the way, you should read the book of Esther. Very relevant to this situation that's current right now. But there will come a time when Israel will be under far more pressure than today. But God's purposes will be fulfilled. The kingdom of Israel shall be established. Jesus is going to reign from Jerusalem as king during the millennium, 1,000-year reign of Christ. So God's purposes will be accomplished. So what did we learn from the life of David? He had ups, he had downs, he trusted God, he stuck and remained faithful, and God looked after him. One more psalm came out of this, Psalm 57, and we'll conclude with this one. Psalm number 57. So you see, these are all knit together in with these psalms. So David composed songs to put to music, and then were used in the worship of the nation of Israel. So Psalm 57, let's read the introduction. To the chief musician Al-Tashrith, Mikam of David, when he fled from Saul in the cave. So these are all part of his life. Be merciful unto me, O God, be merciful unto me, for my soul trusteth in thee. Yea, in the shadow of thy wings will I make my refuge, until these calamities be overpast. All these calamities, being on the run, being in fear for his life, having no fixed abode, nowhere to lay his head, and so forth. I will cry unto the Lord Most High, unto God that performeth all things for me. He shall send from heaven and save me from the reproach of him that would swallow me up. Selah. The Lord shall send forth his mercy and his truth. My soul is among lions, ravenous creatures, and I lie even among them that are set on fire, even the sons of men whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue a sharp sword. Verse 10, for thy mercy is great unto the heavens, and thy truth unto the clouds. So David's life knitted in here with these psalms. He learned to trust God through all of these calamities. And we can learn to trust God through whatever calamities the world may throw at you. The world may throw calamities at you. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord shall deliver them out of them all.